Kia ora friends, welcome back to my studio. I'm Gina, and in today's video we're going to be taking this little church that I've created and putting it into a diorama. So let's get started. So for the diorama, what I'm wanting to do is create a little bit of a Scottish, Highlands, Loch Ness type of feel about it. So I'm certainly not trying to recreate Loch Ness or the Loch Ness monster. I do have a little monster that I'm going to put in here, a little Nessie, which is going to go in the middle of the lake. We've got the church on one side, and then I've also got these 3D printed files that I'm going to paint up, and they're going to be some ruins on the other side. And so when I was creating the stonework, hello Loki, when I was creating the stonework, I wanted to make sure that it matched as closely as possible, so it almost looked like it came from the same area, maybe not the same era. I'm really looking forward to doing that. And I've also got some abandoned fences as well that look stone, like they're made out of stone. So there's a really nice little theme going on here. So right now what I need to do is dig out some of this foam to create the lake. So while that is being put aside to dry, I'm going to move on now to painting up the ruins with the tree and the stonework as well. We've got a little bit of a base here, but what I was going to try and do was cover that up. Might need another layer of ground cover. I also want to paint up our little Loch Ness monster, as well as some of the fencing, and I'm just going to use the church as the guide for the colours and the way that I've actually painted it. So I'm going to do a mid-tone on the brick as well as a wash over the whole lot, and then I'll pick up some highlights with a bit of white. So I'm really happy where I've got to. What I'm going to do is let this dry overnight. Some of the second coat of the ground cover, some of it was reasonably wet, so I do need to give it some time to dry. I'm a bit hesitant to put it in front of a heater just in case it decides to crack. Tomorrow we're going to get in and put some greenery in. I want to put some ground cover. I also want to paint the lake to make sure that it gives the illusion of depth, and then we get into put some resin into the lake because that's going to take 48 hours to cure. So we'll pick this up again tomorrow. Good morning everyone, welcome back. The project has dried really nicely overnight, so we can move on to the next step. I haven't really got so much of a plan today. I'm going to kind of feel my way through it. All I know is I want to put some greenery round on the grass, around the sides of the banks of the lake, maybe some of this more sandy coarse round the edges, and then painting the inside. I don't really know which order to do that in. I'm thinking probably the painting first and then the base layer. That's all going to need a coat of isopropyl alcohol and glue, and then I'm going to need to let that dry. And then what I'm going to do is get it to a point where I can pour the resin in. I'm not going to put the church in until the resin is cured, because ultimately everything on here I can redo if the resin fails, but the church I can't. It's only one. So my risk adverse traits are starting to creep in, but I'm just going to call them logical. So it's only a small project, but it feels like there is still quite a bit to do. So let's get into it. Okay, so I've just put that aside to dry. I'm going to move on to doing some of the foliage. So I've bought a whole lot of miniature little trees, and some of these I might just turn into shrubs, but they're quite cheaply made. I mean, they're pretty cool, and they're not going to take too much to rescue, but they are going to need a bit of a rescue. So for this little one here, you can see that it's got really defined basically almost stripes around it, just where the clumps have been glued onto the branches. So I want to just try and fill that in a bit and make it a little bit more random. This next one is actually okay. I'm probably not going to do anything with that. It's quite nicely separated out. The trunks are a little bit shiny, so I may actually end up by painting those. And then lastly, we've got this larger tree, which again has got that sort of stripy look. So I've got a bag of clump foliage in 2 different colours. If I can glue different shades of green into them, it might actually give them a little bit more of a real look. Let's get into upcycling these trees. Everything's now dry and I'm really happy with where it's at. I've just got Nessie to glue into place, and I'm going to use a bit of UV resin to glue him into place, and then we can get on to mixing and pouring the resin. So let's get into that. Okay, so it's been 48 hours. Well, actually, it's been about a week now, and the resin is really lovely and dry. We had a little bit of a catastrophe. So about halfway through, Loki decided to put his foot right in the middle of it. There was a plastic sheet over the top, and he'd stepped on the plastic sheet, and the plastic sheet went into the resin. I wasn't too sure if I was going to be able to save it. I've got it to this point. It's not perfect, but I am going to put something over the top of the water to make it look like it's not so shiny and glossy. All in all, I'm really happy with where we're at, and once that little church goes in, it's really starting to come together. So let's get in and finish off the rest of the project.